by.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. You are live, you are live.
Good afternoon, everybody across the world, and welcome to the Sunset Safari. For those of you who are joining us for the first time, my name is Jamie, and I have Brian on camera with me this afternoon. Sam is out and about in the other vehicle with Dave, once again back from leave and back on camera. And before we go further into our introductions, I've actually come to this specific area for a very specific purpose. And since we're here, and I don't want to spend too much time here, let's see if I can get a good angle on this. This is for those of you who were watching the Sunset Safari, not yesterday, but the day before, where we stopped and we looked at a musk bull pushing over, musk bull elephant that is, pushing over a marula tree. And I just wanted to show you something to give you a sort of rough sense of perspective of just how big that marula tree was that we watched him. And bearing in mind, of course, that we watched him get it caught in the tree that was above him. We watched him problem solve for a couple of minutes. And this is just one of the many things that you can see on our live safaris coming to you from Djuma Waterhole and Cheetah Plains in the Sabi Sands, which falls into the greater Kruger National Park area of South Africa. So if you want to learn more about anything to do with, for example, big elephants pushing over large marula trees, all you have to do is send through those questions or comments on hashtag SafariLIVE on Twitter, or email through to questions@wildearth.tv. I'm going to hop out for 1 second. I want to try, it's not going to be the greatest angle, and obviously I'm not going to drive off-road just for that, but I want to try and give you a sense of scale. So I'm not the largest person in the world, but it will give you an idea of just how big and how powerful these animals really are. So I'm going to try not to lose my microphone on the way. I'm going to go over there and show you exactly what it looks like when compared to me. Do you think you're able to hear me, Brian? Sort of. Awesome. So just a sense of scale, this tree is wider than I am. It's absolutely massive. And it's already starting to die. I'm walking in his tracks. I'm walking exactly where he walked. Now, it might not be the clearest or the best example, but it's a nice way of showing you, because obviously we couldn't do that while he was busy with it. But it's a really nice way of just showing you what the effects are of a large animal like that, and why the elephants themselves are such shapers of the ecosystem that they live in. Now, something we've remarked upon a great deal over the last few weeks is just how many elephant bulls we have been seeing. And a lot of them, in fact, more than I've ever seen at one time, so many of them are in must, that state where that occurs in all sexually mature male elephants, where their testosterone levels skyrocket. They become slightly more aggressive. I hesitate to use the word aggressive, but they are certainly inspired to show just how big and strong they are. And that particular bull elephant did a superb job on our Sunset Safari. And it was with you, Brian, wasn't it? Yeah. It was with Brian on camera that afternoon as well. And it was fascinating to just watch how that tree swayed backwards and forwards and how he problem solved pushing it over. Just bear with me 1 second. I'm just going to jump onto the Game Drive channel and chat to one of the guides who's asking for updates. Afternoon, I'm heading back to where Karula crossed Gowrie Main this morning just to see if she's come back. Sam's going to be just jiggering about. He'll go to the Ngala later. And this morning, just to give you that conversational update. Oh, sorry, one more question to answer. That's affirmative as far as I know. They might have moved further into the shade, I haven't checked. So just to give you that update, whenever guides go out on a game drive, it's good game drive practice to just check in with the other people who are driving about. And that way you can make sure that you kind of plan your routes out in the best possible way to make the best use of the land that is available to you. And in that case, I was chatting about the fact that this morning, whilst James and myself were out on tracking team along with Connor, our gentleman from the engineering department, who, by the way, we had the most amazing, probably the best graduation ceremony I have ever been to yesterday evening. And we're grinning because Connor, of course, being out in the bush, couldn't attend it. Hello, Connor. Apparently, Connor is sitting in final control, but Connor couldn't attend his graduation ceremony, so we attempted to do the best possible ceremony we could under the circumstances, which involved a cap with a piece of duct tape ribbon and a towel. And then we played the entire Brahms inaugural movement. I can't remember what it's called exactly. The ceremony that they always, or the music that they always play for a graduation ceremony. Oh, it's Gaudiamus Igitur. And some of us sang along, not very well, and probably with some mangled words along the way, but it was our best attempt at a graduation ceremony in the bush. But on a completely different note, I was talking about Karula. James and myself and Connor were out tracking this morning, and we followed Karula's tracks in a huge loop from where some of you saw her on the Djuma Dam camera last night, up to the point where she crossed south back to fetch her cubs. What's going to be really interesting... Oh, sorry, I thought that hornbill had something in his beak. They've been prolifically catching caterpillars over the last probably the last 10 days or so. I think he just found something on that leaf as well. Where's he gone? Off he goes. Oh yes, he is still there. Sorry, I can't see in this light. There he is. He's busy doing something to something. Probably trying to remove some kind of sting. So also see how his beak is wide open like that? And his throat is flapping away frantically. He's actually cleaning his beak now. But it is after this morning's cold, rainy start, it is now 30 degrees centigrade, so 86 in Fahrenheit. That autumnal weather that you never know what to expect. I certainly wasn't expecting drizzle first thing this morning. Don't think any of us were. And now all of a sudden it's blistering hot again, and that's why that hornbill is panting and cleaning the remains of whatever poor hapless caterpillar has been caught from his beak. So my plan for this afternoon, once we've finished with our hornbill, as I think we are, we're going to go and just see whether or not in her travellings Karula didn't actually catch something and had maybe brought her cubs back into this area. Let's go and investigate. And while we head off to do that, let's go and have a look at another one of the little creepy crawlies that's come out with Sam.
Let's go look at a creepy crawly. 2, 1, you are.
Spider, community spider nest, everyone. Look at this. This is just incredible. Look at the way that the spiders are walking around this nest. It is such a cool sighting. I truly love the small things in life, and these are incredible. This community spider nest holds life to so many different spiders. They're one of the only social spider, well, the only social spider here in the Sabi Sands, and it's just incredible to see them. You'll see there that there's actually a wasp that has been caught inside the community, inside this nest, and a number of spiders have gone towards the wasp, and it's incredible to see. I mean, I just got there, and as I got close, I mean, there must have been about 8 or 9 feeding on this wasp. It was so cool, and I got there, and then they just ran away because they saw they felt my carbon dioxide coming out of my breath. But I'm going to go in a little bit closer and show you where that is. There it is. Ooh, you can see all the spiders running away again. Look how thick this nest is, and all these spiders are living inside of here. It's remarkable. We saw one the other day, but I've never seen one as big as this. And what's really cool about this nest is that it actually holds, like, it can be a home for many other birds and things. So I think it's the chin-spotted batsis that likes to use the community spider nest as a nest when there are no spiders in there. Or maybe the community spiders are all eaten by the bird and then used up as a nest. I'm actually not sure about that. If you look beneath it, you've got another big nest right over there. Wow, it's incredible. And what is quite funny and quite ironic about this situation is it looks like it is a spider hunting wasp that has been caught inside the web, which is quite ironic because, well, spider hunting wasps eat spiders, but not spiders of this kind. They pick up, I think it's baboon spiders, and they actually paralyze the baboon spider and put it into its hole. And let me just see if I can get a picture of it. Amazing spiders, honestly. You just see them. I mean, it's not spiders, wasps. Spider hunting wasps. There we go. Number one. Have a look. You can see that looks like it is the wasp that's been caught in the nest, and it's been eaten by all the small little community social spiders. And it's just incredible to watch that. A little bit ironic, but quite fun. Anyway, here we are in the Sabi Sands. It's my second drive today. I was out there this morning and it was incredible. We saw the Nkuhuma. Sometimes I keep getting it wrong. So it's the Maz, not the Moose. Anyway, finally figured that out. I'm out here with David. It's the first drive I'm having with David. Yes, legend. Getting to know him slowly but surely. We also don't know the landscape that well, but it's going to be such an adventure, and you're going to be on this adventure with us, learning, and our intention is to see big herds of elephants. We'd love to see a breeding herd of elephants come down to the watering hole this afternoon when it gets, well, it is quite hot, so we're going to make our way there and see if we can find some ellies. But at the same time, this is what intrigues me, the small, tiny things in the natural world that can teach us so much, and at the same time, just be in awe, sheer beauty. So we're going to see what other small critters we can find out here today. With that, let's get on the road. Kirsty's as a director this afternoon, and we're going to go and have some fun out there in the bush. It's very hot. If you remember yesterday, or this morning, it was very cold. It actually started to rain this morning, and now it's very hot. As you can see, I've got my shirt wide open as I'm sweating. All right. And I'll tell you the one small animal I really want to see today. That would be a squirrel, a tree squirrel. I've spoken so much about squirrels in the past, and I just feel like it would be appropriate to see one. So, intentions are out there to find a tree squirrel. Also, I wanted to say, just before we get driving out there, I'm starting to put a lot more attention into like learning a lot. I'm finding it not difficult, challenging to learn all the different things, from the roads to the little critters that I have to learn, to the lion prides and dynamics and leopard pride dynamics, and it's not pride, leopard dynamics and the pride dynamics. So what I've done is I've made a book called Roads, Memories and Dynamics Through Different Areas, Djuma, Arethusa and Cheetah Plains. In this book, I hope to have many, many different sightings, and what I've got here is all the different names of the roads, and so I'm going to be marking them out and writing them down here. So I've already written down what I saw here, Shubham Road, and I saw here with the nighttime safaris, and I've just memoried, and so I've got like a memory to each place, you know. So that I think would be a great idea to help me learn and get more familiar with the landscape, more familiar with trees, more familiar with the types of animals in here, and just start to learn the natural ecology of Djuma, Cheetah Plains and Arethusa. I also thought it'd be a fantastic idea to get, I've been getting tweets and those sort of things about the various questions that you've been posting to me, and I've been so interested, and so I decided it's such a good way to learn through you guys. I really think it's a really good thing. So this afternoon, or this morning, I got a tweet on the difference between a dragonfly and a damselfly, and I wrote it out. And I think I'm just excited to learn through you and learn through this ecology. But on that note, let's go find some little critters, and let's find some ellies that are keen to have some water in this hot, hot afternoon. If you have any, if you have anything that you would like to see today from a giraffe, a zebra, I know that I still have to find something orange from this morning. There we go, that was something orange, but it was very quick, it just flew past us. At least it was a small little critter, which was a monarch butterfly. It has that nice orange to it, eh? Did you see that, David? It was great. Yeah. I'm still not sure why it's called. Why is it dangerous, Dave?
Well, Sam, you're going to find out.
I'll find out, says Dave. I'll find out. Was it the common sandpiper that we saw on this morning's drive? I thought it was the wood sandpiper. Thank you, Marilyn. Oh, that we spoke about, okay. So I've also got a book. I guess I should show you that. So I'll show it to you just now. Let's go see if we can find some animals, but I've also updated the bird list, made it a little bit more tidy. And yeah, so we're sitting on around 15 or 16 on our birds. We got 3 this morning. From Vancouver, watch out here, Dave. Debbie from Vancouver is asking a very, very interesting question. One of those that I'm very interested in terms of what I've studied is how does squirrels actually influence the ecology of an area. And I did my master's last year in England, and I studied the way in which the grey squirrels there were influencing the red squirrels in England. And they have a big influence on this area in terms of what they do to the trees, because grey squirrels really like to sometimes eat the bark of trees, so they will kill some of the tree species. So they influence that side of things in terms of actually destroying some of the ecology. But in this area in specific, in terms of the red squirrel, I'm actually not sure what kind of influence it's had on the Sabi Sands in general. But you can imagine they are, they plant seeds. That's what they do, and they influence the growth of many other trees out here. So you can imagine a nut. The squirrel comes across a nut. Let's say Monty, the positive squirrel, was out in the low veld and he was running around and he found a nut. Some bury that nut. They will remember where most of them are. So they'll go and bury a number of nuts in the low veld. I know this from England, so the squirrels in England did this. I'm actually not too sure if the tree squirrels here do the same thing. It would be very interesting to find out, but they go and plant seeds all over the place, and they forget sometimes where they planted it, and trees grow. So imagine that influences the ecologies, trees grow, it gives more nesting spots for other birds. So every single animal in the ecology influences the ecology in some way. Nothing is separate from that chain, that web of life. If you stopped and looked at an ant, you'd understand its influence. The termite, you'd see its influence. Wow, we've been talking about elephants. Myself and David are very excited to see if we can see one this afternoon. Jamie's with one right now. Let's go and see how she's doing. See you later.
We do indeed have an elephant, and It's just interesting to note its behavior after what we were talking about, with a lot of the different bulls coming in from the eastern side of Kruger. See how fast he is working. He's going incredibly rapidly away from us down the road. And immediately showing signs of discomfort. Not discomfort with the vehicle. He's just not as relaxed as a lot of the other elephants that we see. You see it more, we've been seeing it more and more. Now what's happening is directly to the east of us, or at least directly to Torchwood and Koro Cheetah Plains, where the Kruger National Park boundary lies, they haven't had nearly as much rain, and there's also been a higher concentration of grazing animals in that area, along with water up until the beginning of the drought. And what that's meant is that now, as we come into the start of our dry season, the elephants have been pushed as the water holes dry up and as there's less and less food for them to eat in that particular part of the park. They're pushing further and further into the Sabi Sands. Now, a lot of these elephants, in that particular part of Kruger, there's very few roads. There's hardly any other vehicles moving about. And as a result, some of them have spent not their whole lives, but a considerable portion of their lives not regularly seeing vehicles. And so it's just a slightly slower process of getting them used to us. I mean, he's really pushing very rapidly away from us. Obviously I'm not going to try and follow him through the block. I'm just going to get you one last view. The other option, of course, is that he's thirsty. He might be racing away because Treehouse Dam is directly in the line that he's walking in. He might be feeling a little bit warm on this hot autumn's afternoon and want to go for maybe a mud bath and a little bit of a drink. He is not in must, as far as I can see. Look how fast he's moving. Sure, he's gone already, pushing behind that tree. Very rapidly moving off away from us. We'll take the road just ahead. We'll take the corner just ahead. Not to stress him out, just to see if he is going to go and have a drink. I said that he's not in must. There's a couple of signs that one looks for an elephant that is heavily in must. The first is that they start secreting from their temporal glands. And that sort of happens in stages. In the beginning of must, it's a sort of, when I used to record that type of behavior, it used to be a gradation of 1 to 4, with 1 being a little bit of moisture coming from that gland, 4 being with it streaming down the side of the face. And actually, when it gets to that point, you can see how swollen those glands are. And they're probably, I've never really thought about it in terms of the elephant's comfort levels, but they're probably actually a little bit discomforting when they are that swollen. And they're basically an overload, secreting pheromone-type substances that let the other elephants know of his condition, as it were, or his state of mind. I know what we should do. I know we've just come from there, but let's go to Treehouse Dam and see if he's not coming across for a drink there, because he's already moved across the road ahead of us. So that's one of the signs that you look for in must. The other is secretion of urine and a very strong scent. Karen, as we sneak around to try and see if our Ellie's not going to pop out somewhere here, Karen was wondering about the elephants having a oh my word, there he is already. Jeepers, he's moving fast. I think he is going for a drink. Let's just give him a moment, just because I want to make sure that we don't make him feel unsettled. So we'll just go very slowly behind him. Amazing. Not too far ahead of us. And you just see the slightest sign of grey. He's slowing down a little bit, wandering down to the water. We might get to have a really nice sighting of him having a drink, maybe even spraying some mud, maybe even going for a swim. Now, Karen, you were talking about symbiotic relationships, and in particular, you were asking about whether or not the elephants in this area have a relationship similar to the ringwood acacia across the Zambezi and the way that they interact with elephants there. Now, Karen, I don't know exactly what kind of relationship elephants have with that species of acacia in that area, but I'm going to assume it's got something to do with their growth and to do with the way in which they interact with that particular species of tree as they feed on it. And elephants do, I mean, I answered in a broad term, but Karen, I'd be really interested to hear more about that particular relationship with the trees and that particular species of tree, because obviously it's not a type that we get in this area. But I'll speak generally about the relationship between elephants and trees. And what elephants play a really, really important role in doing is actually keeping the woodland layer under control. So we've got two layers in this particular area. We've got the grass layer and we've got the tree layer. Now that might seem really self-explanatory, but the balance within that is actually exceptionally delicate. Too much grass and too much moribund or dead grass will actually stop tree saplings from growing. But too many trees and you've got too much shade cover and the grasses can't quite compete as well, and so you mess up the sort of the balance between, or the balance between the grass and the trees can become damaged. I've still got him, by the way. I'm just letting him move happily ahead of us. And what elephants do is they stop tree species like sicklebush and certain species of acacia that are classified as bush encroachment or bush encroachers. And they will keep removing them and stop them from growing too large that they actually upset the grass layer. That, and combined with the fact that their regular walking paths help to clear away moribund material. Elephants in particular, Karen, have a relationship with round-leafed teak trees that they keep at a certain layer, and they're basically farms. So they'll pull a couple of branches off at one point or another, and that tree will then coppice out further. And he just keeps moving ahead of us. I think he is slowly going down to the dam. Let's just wait and see what he does. There he goes. So Karen, yes, they do have relationships with the different tree species. The roundleaf teak being a very important one, because once it's been fed on a little bit, it coppices and splits out into growing a little bit more leaves in smaller directions, so it doesn't grow as tall, but it grows broader. And there we go, he's stopped to have a nice drink at the dam. Hello, boy. Let's just go around him. As we approach him, as he has a drink, Julia, you were wondering how far an elephant can smell water. And the answer, Julia, is a good couple of kilometers, so probably, if I had to guess, maybe 2 or 3 miles. But the most impressive thing that they can do is that they can actually sniff out water underground through layers of dirt. There we go. It's okay, boy. So what the elephants have done around Philemon's dip area is they've actually sniffed out the water that runs in that drainage line and dug into it and got fresh water out. And it's one of the reasons why elephants, to go back to Karen's question and take it to a slightly broader level, are such important factors in this ecosystem. Because long after the water systems have disappeared, or the surface water has disappeared, they will actually go and dig out water. Once they've left that area, the other animals can go and have a drink as well. And we saw them doing it at this dam itself. Hello, boy. He's just moving to a different edge, going to where there might be slightly clearer water. So Karen, and to go a little bit further, we've seen them do it with this treehouse dam, where long after this water had dried up at the start of January, the elephants had actually dug down and brought water up from the surface. And they prefer it. They actually really enjoy the clean water. So even at a dam like this, you might see places where around it the elephants have dug, because they get to water that buffalo haven't had a chance to lie in and to sully and to muddy. And they get to have water that's filtered through the dirt. And you can even see it now with the way that he moves his trunk. He's stretching out away from the edge of the water where it's muddy to where the water is slightly cleaner. And each trunkful is capable of transporting somewhere in the region of 12 liters into his mouth. Look at him. Now he's going to show you. I don't know why he sullied the water like that. Maybe it's to throw over himself. Get some nice thick mud from the bottom. There you go. So he was just rushing to go for a drink. Oh, we're going to be lucky. As he walks in. Isn't it amazing what a versatile thing that trunk really is? Digging through the dam, collecting mud, acting as a straw. Not quite a straw, because of course he doesn't actually drink through it. He just uses it to transport water into his mouth. As an instrument for feeding, as an instrument for touch. And he's coating himself on this hot day with cooling mud that, as it dries, will help, along with his ears, to cool him down. Kathy is looking at the underside of this elephant's trunk. He's just commenting on the fact that he looks as though he's got warts along the bottom. And the folds of skin around the bottom of the trunk are very, very prominent. And it gives that trunk the elasticity that it needs to be able to be so versatile. So whether it's to stretch forward like that in that concertina-like motion, or whether it's to twist side to side, it's got plenty of skin flexibility in order to be able to do that. He's having a good drink. And in some elephants, Kathy, you're absolutely right. Those patches of skin are more prominent than on others. He's quite a mature bull. He's quite a big boy, but he's definitely not one of the biggest that we've seen. He's probably somewhere in the region, if I had to guess, just coming up to about over 25. So still young in elephant terms, and only really now getting to the point where he might have a chance to mate with females. That's awesome. Look now how he's stirring the mud up at the bottom. And elephants really do love water. They're very capable swimmers. Oh, how lovely. Makes you want to go and join them, doesn't it, Brian? Maybe not. I've seen what those buffalo do in that dam. He might even roll right over. Oh, head right in. Love three dogs. You're just looking at his backbone and wondering if he is in poor condition. And The answer is no, he's absolutely fine. The spines are more prominent in certain elephants. Oh, it's a laborious process standing up in that mud. And especially in males. Look at him rubbing the mud off his tusks. That's such a lovely sighting. So Love 3 Dogs, he's actually okay. In the males, the spine is often a bit more prominent than it is in the females. So he's not very thin at all. Just I want to show you something. Look at his stillness. Have you noticed how many times throughout this sighting he's gone completely still and he's turned his head ever so slightly towards us. So whilst he is relaxed in our presence, that's what's telling me exactly how close I would be prepared to go to him. Now, a lot of elephant sightings, you can see that they are ignoring you completely, they are completely relaxed. But in this case, whilst he is comfortable with us, he is keeping a close eye on us. There, that slight turn, head turn to the left. His way of looking back over his shoulder to make sure that we're not going to follow him any further across there. But we're not going to follow him any further. This has been an awesome sighting, watching him. I was really hoping he was going to roll right over in the mud, which he didn't do. But he has had a wonderful mud bath. So Love 3 Dogs, we don't need to be concerned. He's still got a healthy fat layer. He might be an elephant that's come in from the Kruger, as we discussed before, in which case, yes, he might have lost a little bit condition, but nothing too serious and nothing to be concerned about. Might also be one of the reasons why the elephants that have come in from that area are feeling a bit stressed, because whilst they're not starving and they're not anywhere near starvation, they might just be feeling the effects of the hunger a little bit. However, I don't think there's anything terribly unnatural about the prominence of his spine. Right, back over to Sam. We're going to head across to Cheetah Plains.
Sing.
The moon is big in the sky this afternoon. It's incredible, and it influences our life every single day. How often do you guys stand outside and have a look at the world around you and to see the moon sitting in its beautiful place in the sky? I don't often do it, and I love to think about the way in which it's impacting my life, you know, especially the bush. Like, how does the moon influence the bush and the way in which the animals move along the landscapes? If you come here during full moon time, wow, it's a super interesting time, because you walk through here and you just see, be careful walking, go through the bush driving first before you walk, and you start to notice how animals act differently, because the moon will change the way in which they behave. If it's really bright out here, it's much easier for things to be seen. So you can imagine the behavior, the way of life is changing every single day. And I find that fascinating, and the way in which the moon is growing is, it's actually called, it's a term, and I want to give it to you guys and see if you guys know it. What does it mean when the moon is getting bigger? What is the term called when the moon gets bigger than what it is now? And what is it when the moon is getting smaller than what it is now? It's two words that start with a W. See if you can get it. It'll be cool. Going from a much bigger thing, like the moon, all the way down to something a little bit smaller that is orange and is coming towards the season of this, autumn. We wanted to talk about something that's orange, and I thought, you know, this is turning into a nice orange, and we've been speaking about it over the last few days, about how the bush is going to go completely orange in autumn, and this is just the first signs of the autumn leaves coming out. Or it's actually a dead plant that's been eaten by an elephant. It looks like it's been stripped. It's called mulling. It's what an elephant will do. The elephant will break it and then put it in its mouth. And yeah, I don't want to get elephant saliva jokes. It's quite dry, so I won't be. So that is the orange plant, and I can't wait to be with you all when autumn comes. Another thing that's a little bit orange this afternoon is our flaky thorn acacia. Have a look at that flaky thorn acacia. You can tell it's a flaky thorn acacia if you can see the bark, almost like the bark's flicking off. And my audio is not going to be very loud, so I'm going to try and go there and show you how the flakes come off quickly. See the flakes? You can see that the flakes are falling off the tree, and that's a significant sign that it's a flaky thorn acacia, and it brings in a beautiful color orange as it strips down. So that's the flaky thorn acacia, the signs of autumn, and the beautiful moon that sits above us and gives us many, many different experiences. I know that when the moon is full, my whole mood changes, my experience of life changes a little bit, and yeah, it's just interesting to just keep in relation to the moon sometimes and just notice how you're feeling at different times of the month. Anyway, so that's that. From a big, large moon, let's see if we can go and find something big like an elephant out in the wilderness today. Judy, James, and Laura, well done. It is waxing and waning. So I used to remember it like wax on. That's how I used to do it. Or like David just gave me a good example of it, waxing on your surfboard. Imagine you're about to go for a surf and you wax the surfboard and make it nice and thick. That means the moon is getting bigger, waxing. Waning is when it is getting smaller. So well done. I think the moon, actually it is. The moon is waxing at the present moment. 2, 3, 4 nights ago, it was much, much smaller than it is now. So, well done, Judy and friends. Can't tell you how different the temperature has been just over the day. This morning it was raining. We had to get all the things on the back, organize ourselves for the rain. Now it's the afternoon, it's much hotter, and we are driving towards a watering hole where hopefully you'll be able to see some ellies on this afternoon. I've been told that you've been seeing a beautiful ellie in the water, so you've already seen a little bit of that. But I'll see if I can find just a little bit more, maybe another one. Maybe a buffalo having a nice bath. Isabella, who is aged 5, is asking me, do the animals think that our vehicle is like an animal itself? Isabella, I used to think that as well all the time. I was like, what do these animals think that this big machine is? Do they think like I'm a big, weird-looking elephant? Or do they, what is it that they think? And, I think, they don't feel anything now because they've become habituated with the vehicle, which means that they've noticed that the vehicle is not creating any harm to them. So they might think that we're an animal that really doesn't impact on their life that much, just has a whole bunch of people looking at them. So I'm guessing that it does have an influence in some regard. Like if you go, well, in a huge regard, if you go tracking leopards one day in a vehicle, it will still be very nervous of a vehicle, so it may think that it is some animal. But over time, you drive the vehicle towards a leopard and you, what you call, habituate them and make them comfortable with being around vehicles. Great question, Isabella. Age 5, that's so cool. Aaron from New Zealand is asking me, what is my favorite season? It's a great question, Aaron. I chop and change all the time. Well, we're going through quite a thick area right now. Quite nice and bumpy. Woo-hoo. When I was a kid, when I was around 10, 11 years old, I used to love winter so much. I used to love sitting in front of my fire. It was raining outside like crazy all the time. I'd sit in front of my fire, read a book, or just chill with my twin brother, where I used to just drink some hot chocolate and chill with my dogs. I used to love winter so much. But as I've grown older, I really enjoy summer. Like summer, spring coming into summer, the way in which you watch everything just light up in color and give you like all this radiant energy that the natural world so freely provides you when it's in spring. I actually had the most magnificent spring last year when I was in England. I was living in Devon in the south, and I had the most incredible, just the beginning of summer, looking at all the different types of plants that come out, and the bluebells and all the little, I really enjoy my flowers, and just watching all the flowers come up in England was incredible. At the same time, I live in Cape Town, and we have so many different species of flowers on top of Table Mountain. It's incredible. But with that, while we see if we can find ourselves an elephant or something really small, #SafariLIVE, what you might like to see that's really small in the bush today, let us know. On that note, let's go see how Jamie's doing. See you now.
This is one of my absolute hands-down favorite birds to see out here. Unfortunately, one of the males just flew out of the sun where he was beautifully highlighted. It is a plum-colored or violet-backed starling. Absolutely lovely to see, and especially since this will be one of our last opportunities to see them before they migrate off into northern Africa. And there's some other birds there as well. There's a couple of females which are much more drab in color than the male. I'm really hoping this male will give you just an idea of how beautiful he really is, because he might be a new one for some of our viewers to add to their bird list. Now, just like the Cape glossy starling or the Burchell starling, they also have that incredible incandescence. The difference is, instead of being blue and green, they're actually, as their name suggests, a very bright coloured purple. And you might be just able to see the shine around his face every now and again as he moves his head into that patch of sun. Come on, buddy. Out you come into the sun. You can see there's a female on the left of your screen and a female up a little bit and to the right of that, part of his flock. There could also even be some subtle coloured juveniles within that flock. They come across into this area to breed. They do breed in this area during the summer months. So they would be at the right age to start getting their adult coloration. Definitely one of my favourite. They're also known as an amethyst starling, after the semi-precious stone, which I think is a lovely and very descriptive name. Their official name, just to let you know, is the violet-backed starling. I've always known them throughout my life as a plum-coloured. It's one of those new bird name changes that seem to constantly perplex me. I was so hoping he was going to fly into the sun and display that incredible plumage, but at least we did get to see him. It has been a while since I've managed to catch, or since a plum-coloured or violet-backed starling has managed to catch my eye. Nope, I think he's found his patch of shade, and he's quite content to stay there. But since he is so very far away, I've got my picture ready in my book to show you. I can show you why he is one of my favourite birds to look at. So there you go. You can really see why it's called the plum-coloured or the violet-backed starling. And just like the Cape glossy and the Burchell starling or the greater blue-eared starling, they're also almost solid black in colour, but it's a slightly different way that the keratin layers are placed over the pigments of the feather to reflect and refract, rather than blue-greens that our eyes see, the purple light, or the purple lengths of light rays are slightly, what would that be? Would those be shorter or longer? Oh my goodness, my physics is battling here. I think they'd be slightly shorter. You can see what I meant about the female as well, being much more subtle in color, much more drab and dreary than the males, just like with the ostriches, to take us back to the Cheetah Plains sightings of ostriches. A lot of our viewers, as I mentioned, and I'm sure Sam might have touched on as well, since he is so incredibly good at keeping a birds list along with you all, a lot of our viewers keep bird lists where they list, and often accompanied by screenshots of the different birds that they have seen. But Gerda was wondering about the black-eyed bulbul and why she hasn't seen one on drive, and was wondering whether or not she just keeps missing them, or if we don't see them in this particular area. And Gerda, they are around, and what I'll do is I'll make it a special, or I'll try and make it a special mission to try and find you one. They are not as common in these parts as they are further towards the high-veld areas, as well as, goodness, is that a stump? Is that just the light catching the stump in a funny way, Brian? Can you see where I'm looking? I think it's just, oh, it looks so like a leopard head. See if you can spot the leopard head in the stump that I see. Okay, maybe it doesn't look terribly like a leopard head, actually. When Brian zooms in, it looks nothing like a leopard head at all. Or not. I mean, I've only been working here for nearly a year. That stump probably hasn't, no, that's not true. An elephant might have moved that stump there. I'm going to go with that. I'm going to say that the elephants moved that stump there, and it hasn't always been there. And that's why it caught my eye as looking a bit strange. I think it's just because the sun's catching on it so beautifully. Oh well. Gerda, I'll make it a special mission, but as I said, they're not as common as they are in the high-veld areas. So around my house in Johannesburg, or my parents' house in Johannesburg, there are lots and lots of black-eyed bulbuls. They also quite like riverine vegetation, like a great deal of the bird species. Something like a purple-crested turaco, for example, we do get here, and I have heard them call every now and again in the Mulwati drainage line, but we hardly ever get to see them. But the habitat isn't perfect for a black-eyed bulbul, but they do occur here. But we'll make it a mission, Gerda, to try and catch you a black-eyed bulbul. And of course, with them being tiny, tiny little birds, a little bit, or about that size, they are a bit more tricky to spot. They're more vocal. You hear them more often than you see them, thanks to the thick vegetation that they like to move about in. Just bear with me 1 second while I swing off the road completely. Oh, I'm glad to hear it. Thanks, everybody. Everybody's supporting me on the leopard stump there. You get to a point in one gets to the point in one's career, let's use the correct grammar, where you cease to be embarrassed about mistakes like that, because everybody makes them, and everybody's made them all the time. It's just one of those things that happens. But I'm glad you all agree with me that that was a very leopard-shaped stump. Would have been terribly exciting. Remember, Brian, at one time with the crested Franklin leopard tail that actually was a leopard? That was actually a leopard. And speaking about the different birds, to move away from my slight error in eyesight and back onto our different bird species of Djuma. Aaron, you were wondering about whether or not, sorry, I'm checking something, Aaron, at the same time. I promise I'm not being rude or ignoring you. I was looking for the golden orb web spider that I saw in this area, but unfortunately she seems to have dismantled her web. Aaron was wondering about hardy-daws. And hardy-daws, we do absolutely get them. And you might even, if you watch the Djuma Dam camera, get to see them. They like to be around that area, in those nice open grassy areas around the clearing of the dam, and places where the mud is soft, where they can stick their probing beaks in and catch worms and other such delights. from beneath the surface of the soil. The hardy-dar ibis is the full name, and in theory the correct spelling is the same forwards as it is backwards. Hardy-dar, and I've forgotten what that's called. It will come back to me. In the meantime, let's go over to Sam and another bird for your list.
Oh, a new bird to our list just flew away as it went 3, 2, 1 live. It was like, I don't want to be on camera. Got away as quick as it could. I don't know if you managed to see that.
Quick glimpse.
Did you have a quick glimpse? It was a grey hornbill. So I think we can write that on our list, huh? What do you think, Dave?
I reckon.
Yeah. Cool. So, because it's gone away, I can actually show you something quite fun. Hornbill. 212. All right. So, right at the bottom is the grey hornbill. There it is. It's very, very sad. We've seen the southern yellow-billed hornbill and we've seen the southern red-billed hornbill, and now we've just seen the African grey hornbill, which is very exciting. And this bird is very interesting. I used to learn it when I was during my training at Londolozi, which was 6 to 7 months. And I used to hear this bird. I'll never forget walking. If I close my eyes, I can take myself straight there. And I was walking in the bush, and I just I would just hear this thing going crazy, and I would never know what it was. And then one day I spotted it, and I was like, I'll never forget you, Mr. African Grey Hornbill. You sound like you are crying. That is the way in which I remembered it. Sounded like a little baby crying. Which is not very nice, but I mean, that's just one way to learn it. And so, this is a very cool device that is able to pick up the sound of things. I'm actually quite not sure really how it works. I think it's a type of like grid thing that sits in the picture and helps you, you know, when you click on this, it reacts to it. So it's an interesting thing, but let's just check he's not around, because it's not very nice to play their call when they're around. It's not comfortable for them. So he's definitely not around. So you would have heard 2, 3 bird calls there. You would have heard the one when I switched it on, the African grey hornbill, and then you would have heard the one that I switched off. So every single time I switch this thing on and off, it makes the sound of the same bird every time. But the second one was what we wanted to hear, and I'll never ever forget that bird call. So hopefully we've seen it very quickly. Maybe we'll be able to hear it out in the distance, and then we can locate it on it again and be good. I've improved my bird list over here, as you can see. And I've got now numbers. We are number 17, everyone. And it is a African grey hornbill. So this is exciting, guys. I've really enjoyed getting this bird list together. Canada is saying I'm actually one of the rarest men, or rare men, to be able to read what I'm writing. Thanks very much. That's a nice compliment from you. I was actually really bad at writing. When I was at school, when I was a youngster, they used to only give you a pen when you got your pen license. So you have to get a license to get your pen at school. And I was the only one on a pencil for years. I had to use a pencil until like I was 12, and I was really sad. So I used to sit in my room every day with my pencil, and I would write in capital letters because it made it look smarter. And then I got my pen license. Under the pen ever since, never looked back. Well, so I actually just wrote some pencil. I do love pencils though. Helen, you're asking, is my twin as interested as I am in nature? The opportunity for me to be able to continue a lifestyle like this has just made it more prevalent in the past. You know, we spent and done many, many things together. We studied the same degree at university, in the environment. Because we both studied sustainability. And I believe
back on the back of Rusty once again, and at the moment exploring the roads of Djuma. I've decided against cheetah plains, and I'll tell you why. It's because it's my big weakness out here. I have to go and visit the hyena den, and if I go to cheetah plains today, I have been listening to the radio. There have been no updates of cheetah or leopard in that area, otherwise obviously I would be racing off in that direction. But because there haven't been any updates, and because I would really like to catch up with the hyenas before I go on leave tomorrow, I just figured that we'd stick about in the area for now and pay a visit there later. Gives Sam a chance as well to follow up on the Nkuma lionesses around Buffelshoek Dam that he found this morning. And just bear with me 1 second. I know Brent was trying to call somebody on the Gam Drive channel. I just want to see if he managed to get a response. Scrap that, I'll wait my turn. There's a conversation going for now. Something that I've spoken about before, but something that we can actually track the progress of as we do these live safaris, because we're in this area very regularly. So if I stop here next to this knobthorn tree, when I first started working here, this was a living tree. It was absolutely fine and healthy. You see that now it is the exact opposite of fine and healthy. It is very much dead, and over the next few months it's going to start rotting away. And there, as Brian is showing you, is the reason for that death of this tree. And that, to go back to the subject that we started our drive with, is the impact that elephants can have. It's not a bad thing. It is just a reality of the impact that they have on the bushveld. In this case, they've got hold of a large knobthorn tree, and they have stripped the bark almost all the way around it. Thereafter, that cambium layer, that red layer that you can sort of see there you go, there's a little bit of it there sticking out underneath the top layer of bark, and through that runs the xylem and the phloem that carry nutrients and water for the tree. It makes it highly nutritious for an elephant, but of course it's highly essential to the tree. And as a result, they've allowed wood borer beetles to move in there, termites to strip away the rest of the bark, and they have, as a consequence, killed a very large, very old tree. And I'm not the world's expert at aging knobthorns, but I would guess that this knobthorn is at least 30 to 40 years old. They grow relatively quickly in the tree world. Nevertheless, it has met its end. And that's the way that the elephants are actually going to shape the ecosystem in the next few years due to this drought. And they're going to be targeting the cambium layers of trees more and more because the trees have access to nutrients underground, and of course they have leaves to photosynthesize and make nutrients of their own. And we've got a tree a little bit on our left there, the knobthorn that has not been completely stripped, and I know for a fact this was done at the same time because I was here for it. where the elephants haven't quite taken all of its bark. And as a result, this knobthorn has survived and might well still survive. Although that kind of stripping of the bark makes it far easier for termites to enter the tree. But knobthorn's a lot tougher, a lot more solid than marula tree wood. All of the different woods have different consistencies out here. And the more and more we go into the dry season, and especially due to this drought, the more we're going to see the elephants targeting the bark. What that actually means is that for a lot of animals, these trees are the saviors for over the next few months, right up probably until the beginning of next year. Please, fly. It's getting a little bit much. There are so many flies around at the moment, and that one tried to fly up my left nostril. The trees are actually the savior of the animals. They've got those large taproot systems that are capable of drawing water up from deep beneath the surface of the ground, and so they will survive far longer than the grass layer. And elephants in turn, if they push down a large tree like that marula tree that we saw, I didn't mention it, but just before we drove up to that tree, there were actually Nyala standing around browsing on it, which is one of the useful things that elephants do. And often animals like kudu and so on will target or will follow behind big bulls in dry season so that they can take advantage of whenever the elephant leaves the tree, is finished feeding on the tree, and they can take advantage of whatever scraps they happen to find. Sorry, I have been distracted by tracks, but they are not terribly clear. Not a big cat. And some of the trees, on the subject of the way in which they will help the animals survive, and I know you were discussing the seasons with Sam. Kim, you were wondering, watching all the way in South Carolina, if we get evergreen trees. And the answer is yes, we do. The other interesting thing about our leaves is that whilst the bush willows might drop their leaves at the same time and the marulas might drop their leaves at the same time, it doesn't all happen exactly at the same time. So not all tree species are leafless together. One of the evergreen trees, here's a good example. We'll stop for the, I was going to stop for one in particular. There's a good number of them off to my left. One of the evergreen trees is the silver cluster leaf. The name given to them because they have that silvery sheen to their leaves. And of course, in terms of trees that I love, this is my arch nemesis. And since the silver cluster leaf tree resulted in my spectacular, quite literal fall from grace one day on the live safari. I'm not saying anything more. Those of you who are watching will know what I mean. Those of you who are not, don't worry about it. It was one of the more embarrassing moments of the live safaris. So there you go, Kim. That is a tree that keeps its leaves throughout the season. The other very important tree is the one that is fruiting at the moment, the one that we all keep stopping next to grab some berries. That is the magic guarri tree. Now, is there a nice example of a magic guarri? We're not quite near any of the guarri thicket. Guarri spelt G-U-A-R-R-I, guarri. So the magic guarri tree keeps their leaves. The weeping wattle actually keeps its leaves. The acacias, or some of the acacias, keep their leaves. There's the weeping wattle with its almost acacia-type leaves. You'll be very grateful if you ever find yourself stuck in the bush in the middle of winter that this tree does have leaves if you happen to leave the toilet paper at home, because this is your solution in that unfortunate instance. Lots and lots of evergreens. The tree wisteria, the first to flower, the tree that is the first to flower out here, the tree wisteria, or Bolasanthus speciosus. Beautiful purple flowers reminiscent of the normal sort of flowering wisteria that you might have seen in gardens. Very popular plant. And the fact that it's an evergreen plant, we don't see that many of them here, but there are quite a few around the Gallagher Pan area. The fact that it is an evergreen plant makes it very popular as an indigenous ornamental tree. ornamental trees. So all of the trees that I've listed, and particularly at the moment in South Africa, there's a serious drive towards keeping the gardens indigenous and to keep down the number of exotic trees that are planted. Sorry, just listening to Game Drive channel updates. But yes, there's a big push for creating indigenous gardens rather than the exotic gardens that have been favored in the past. Okay. Just been listening to updates on the Djuma Pride. It appears as though they are still around the Buffelshoek Dam area. So I'm sure that Sam will be keen to follow up with them at some point very soon. I was looking for a nice magic worry to show to Kim, because the other reason, oh, there goes that beautiful weather. I think the rain's actually coming through again. All right, it seems as though just while I've been listening to the Game Drive channel, Sam has managed to catch up with those lionesses and they are on the move. So let's jump on the back and have a look.
Welcome everyone, we are here with the Djuma Pride. And they're mobiles, it's very exciting that they're mobile. It's still quite young in the day and they're mobiles, which is strange. Normally they would be flat, and this is very exciting, guys. This is the first time I'm actually following them on foot. As you can see, it's quite thick out here and it's not that easy, but I'm slowly going to try and move my way. I don't want to make too much noise behind them. So we're going to go slowly. Try not to decrease the impact on the plants as much as possible. Bear with me while I'm trying going through here, everyone. It's very, very exciting. Guys, we're going to have a problem soon with space. I don't want to go follow them too much. Let's see if we can get a good sighting of them going into this area here. Hold on. There she goes. Beautiful. How cool is this, guys? There she heads. She must be following the pride that have headed towards the Buffelshoek Dam. There's no ways that I'm going to be able to follow her now because it's going into a dip. I'll do my best to relocate. Let's go see what Jamie's up to, and we'll see just now.
Oh, while Sam keeps up with the Djuma Pride, of course, it brings the question to, I think, the front of most regular viewers' minds, and that is the question about Junior and whether or not he has been seen recently in the area. Now, I did give that update about the fact that I examined the photos with Tristan, one of the guides on Simbambili. We examined the photos of a sighting that Tristan had of a mysterious male lion on Elephant, I think it was his sighting was Elephant Plains. It was either around Elephant Plains or Shirley's. Hello, boys. I'll stop here to give you something to look at while I yak on about Junior. So Joyce, he hasn't been since we confirmed that was indeed Junior in the area, and it was most definitely him. It was not one of the Birmingham boys, it was Junior. As to where he's gone now would be absolutely anyone's guess. Perhaps he's out looking for distracted impala rams that are, as you know, very much at risk at the moment. They are rutting, which makes for some highly entertaining sightings. They are all on edge, practicing sparring with each other until they have the opportunity to compete for access to the females. And rams of this size, see how his horns are still pointing slightly inwards? He's just not quite fully grown, although he's got quite a powerful body size, and he probably won't be big enough just yet to compete for the females. And a lot of them doing what this male is currently doing, and if I start the car, unfortunately, he will stop doing it, and that is horn thrashing. All of the antelope species do it, partly to pop their scent on the bushes themselves from around the preorbital gland, but mostly it's a way of building muscle tone around the neck, so essentially strengthening those neck muscles, but it's also practicing for when they do have an opponent, and just showing how big and strong they are, taking out some of the frustrations of breeding season on the bushes next to them. I wanted you to have a look before I tried to reposition, because I think he's going to stop as soon as I do try and get you a clearer view of what he's doing. But now that you've seen, let's try. You see, head up. Now, Joyce, just to go, as we reposition, just to go back to that question, how's your view there, Brian? Good, perfect. Keep going, boy. You were being so entertaining. It's all right. You're not going to do anything. Yes, show that bush who's boss. There we go. That's it. He's terrified. The bush is terrified. You can also see him scratching next to those orbital glands. And I'm fairly certain that also during their time of rut, you'll probably find that their glands become, even if we can't see it, become infinitesimally more swollen. And that probably also relieves the discomfort of that as well. But Inyala do it, Kudu do it, all of the antelope species do it as a way of looking big and scary. Now, just to go back to that discussion to wrap up on what I think Junior's going to do. Sure, what I think and what I know are two very different things. I know it would be best for him to leave the area, but at the same time, I'm not sure that he's going to. And the reason I say that is the Birmingham boys have established themselves such an enormous territory, and Steph and the rest of us were actually having a discussion about this a couple of days ago. The fact that the Mapocho legacy and the number of male lions that they killed, the Mapochos being a coalition of 6 male lions, about, not quite 10 years ago, it was about 7 or 8 years ago now, that they moved into the Sabi Sands. They established a territory of around 10,000 hectares, which is enormous. And he is going to now snack on the bushes that he has been thrashing. But the discussion sort of centered around whether or not the Mapochos had some kind of an impact on the way in which lion dynamics have played out ever since. Just waving hello to another vehicle. So what we meant by that, and what Steph meant by that, was the fact that because the Mapochos killed so many male lions, and because it was a big coalition, 6 is quite a large number of male lions, they had a territory larger than would be the norm for this particular area. And as a result, what they've created now, even though the Mapochos are now gone, they've been all killed by other male coalitions, they've left gaps in lion territories, gaps that however big, with the 5-member coalition of the Birmingham boys, or with the Majingi lions, or with the Mungen males, or with the Salati males, they aren't quite filling. And so as a result, with a low number of big male lions, a male like Junior actually has a slightly higher survival chance than normal, because he can sneak through into those little gaps. I'm not saying that is the case. I'm saying that's a discussion that we had about one of the reasons that Junior might have actually come back to this area. It's not uncommon for a lion to return to its natal range at some point, but generally male lions, their instinct is to disperse, and particularly at Junior's age, to survive. Well, one thing I will say about him, I think these impala have all settled down for now, so we can leave them be. Just one last view. One thing I will say about Junior is that in terms of body size, he is a big lion. He really is. He's got the Matimba male genetics flowing with, or at least we suspect he is the offspring of the Matimba males. As you know, with animals, with wild animals, you can never be 100% certain. But we know that the Matimbas were dominant in this area when he was born. It is most likely that he is their cub. They certainly accepted him as their genetic offspring. And it seems as though he has inherited their body size, because the Birmingham boys, for all that there are 5 of them, they are not huge lions. They've certainly grown a great deal, but Junior is a good 2 years younger than them, and he's probably close to the same body size. Oh, another horn thrash there. Just one last push. And as they scrape and horn thrash the bushes, Wayne was wondering about whether or not there are any sensory nerves within the horns themselves. He says that he realizes that they are in rut, but was wondering whether there's a chance that the horns get itchy. And the answer is no. Yes, there's blood vessels running through the horns, and there might be some degree of nervous control, although I don't think so. But either way, that keratin sheath is completely without feeling, just like your fingernails and your hair. But if you bite your nails too short, or if your nail rips too close to the edge, you know how sensitive that can be. So the growth plate underneath it is sensitive, but the horns are not, unless they break, in which case it's like breaking a bone for the animal concerned. But animals do that, Wayne. You're not far off in that animals do often do that when they have itchy heads. In this case, though, it is largely to do with the rut, making themselves look big and strong, practicing, and mostly, in my opinion, getting rid of some of that frustration that builds up within them. That level of aggression is totally heightened during that time. There we go. He's sufficiently shown that particular tree who is boss, and he's moving off slightly more relaxed. So whilst animals do often utilize trees to scratch themselves, now that poor tree, the next male impala's moved in to do the same thing. Well, not quite as committed as the previous male. A delicate scratch behind the ear. Oh, here we go again. Aqua's commented about the impala making a kill of the bush and then eating it afterwards. Certainly what the previous one did. That poor tree. All right. I think we shall leave the thrashing impala for now and go see what other things we can find. Of course, we've got plenty more sightings like that to look forward to over the next month and a half. And very soon we should be seeing actual impala mating as well. Or at least the initial attempts, the initial fumbling attempts of the male as they chase the females across clearings. Can be exceptionally entertaining to watch. I've also seen, we have chatted a bit about this before, but I've also seen Inyala and Kudu do that, and wildebeest, in mud. Quite often they will go up to a muddy pan, or a muddy pan that's dried up a little bit, and they actually they thrash their horns in the mud and they lift up big, thick layers of mud. And it's very common to see an Inyala or a kudu wandering around with extra mud on their horns, and nobody really knows exactly why they do that. There's a distinct possibility that they do it because it makes their horns look even bigger. But it might also just be that they've been doing something similar to the impala, taking out some frustration, strengthening their neck muscles, and just haven't wiped the mud off afterwards. I've never seen impala do that though, I have to admit. And just on the subject of lions, of course we are in a vast wilderness area. The Sabi Sands itself, 60,000 hectares. The Kruger National Park, to which the Sabi Sands is open to, unfenced and wide open to. In total, including the Timbavati, Baluli, Manuleti, Sabi Sands, all kinds of other private reserves and concessions, reaches 4 million hectares in terms of size. Now, there's a lot of lion prides to be monitored in that particular area. And our beard was wondering, well, who keeps track of all of the movements of the lion prides, maybe just in our particular area? Do we have a giant pinboard map, or are there other ways? And whilst a pinboard map is not a bad idea, it's something that I used to do where I used to work. Eventually we had to make a new one just because it was so wrecked from all of the different push pins, but we had different colors for different prides, different elephant herds. It was a lot easier to monitor though because it was a closed system. In other words, a lot smaller than the area that we're in now. So our beard, whilst we don't have a map up at camp, we do have a wonderful network of the various guides. And of course, when you live out here and you spend time out here, we're always constantly talking to each other on the Game Drive channel. We're always monitoring. I can tell you, for example, that there are 2 lions at First Rock on Torchwood, 2 males, probably Birmingham boys, but not 100% confirmed because we haven't seen them. That's the kind of thing that we might chat to Texan or to Aubrey about, the 2 guides at Djuma, where Tella and Gallagher, because they can traverse Torchwood, they can take their guests there, so they will know which lions are there. And so it is that we sort of keep track and we ask. Oh, and on that subject, I forgot to tell you, that male lion on Mana Mana that you saw with me the other day and with Brent, sure, was it this morning only? But the male lion and the female that are on the dam wall, the male lion is one of the 4 ways males. So definitely not a male that we have regularly seen before. The 4 ways males, of course, having part of Mana Mana as their territory. That was one of the 4 ways males. Certainly the first time I've ever seen him. Unfortunately, it was at about a 300-meter distance. And as Junior lurks around, as a young male lion does, as he spends his time lurking and dodging other male lions, Paula was wondering whether or not there's a chance Junior would be looking for his father, or his fathers, since we don't know which one it would be, the Matimba males. Hello, big girl. Oh, this is going to be tricky. You know, of course, when I adopt that tone that there is an elephant there, unfortunately. They're being a little bit tricky. Hold on a sec. Paula, sorry. Let's put that question on hold for one moment while we approach these elephants, and I will get back to you on that subject. Hello, everybody. Where have you been hiding? In this thick bush. A little one. They're all going to come out into the open for us. Here we go. Hello. What have you got to say for yourself, little girl? Not much. See that backward glance over the shoulder? That's what I was talking about when we spoke about the bull earlier. Looking at us out of the corner of their eye. There's another youngster. And a male in this case on the left. And then the big cow at the back. I've seen her before. I think that's actually the female that trumpeted at James and myself this morning. For no quite clear apparent reason. She just decided that's what she wanted to do. Let's keep up with them while I do. Paula, the answer about your question about Junior, would he be looking for the Matimba males to form a coalition, is no. With almost complete certainty. I always hesitate to say anything with absolute certainty out here because nature does some very strange, very exceptional things at times. But the chances are absolutely not. And the reason behind that is that the reason coalitions are formed and the reason male lions disperse in the way that they do. These guys are a little... Just keep moving away from us. The reason that lions do that is to keep the genetic lines fresh. And male lions, once their sons reach sexual maturity, will play a role in pushing that male out of an area, out of their territory. It just so happened in this case. Oh, how lovely. It just so happened in this case that the Matimba males were caught up right in the middle of the Birmingham boy takeover at the point when they might otherwise be pushing Junior out. It was one of the reasons we think that Junior stayed as long as he did with the females. So if there are any cases of a male lion joining up with his fathers as a coalition, they are very rare and very exceptional. Look how pregnant that female is at the back. She's bulging out on her right side, unless that's some kind of growth. You can sort of see how uneven she is on the right versus the left. Elephants carry their pregnancies very high right up until it's time for them to give birth, when that drops down. And I think that might be a pregnant elephant. Beautiful. And generally, elephants don't, when you do follow behind them, it's nicer to just give them a bit of distance as you do. They're not upset in any way. It would be, if I could, I would prefer to go all the way around and meet them from the front, just because it's nicer to let the elephants choose to come to you rather than follow behind where they know that they can't see you. So it just, you've got to give them a wider space as you follow. And as we slowly shuffle forward to watch these elephants disappear across our southern boundary, with our pregnant cow lumbering slowly behind, we've spoken before about how not unsettled, yes, actually unsettled is the right word, how unsettled some of the elephants have been, especially the breeding herds, and we've mentioned that it might be due to the increased presence of musk bulls in the area. Laura, yes, I think you're absolutely right. I think that an increased presence of musk bulls in an area might just trigger the must in other bulls that are already here. I'm going to do some further research into it because I've never heard of must triggering another must cycle in another elephant. But it sort of makes sense to me that that's a possibility, that it might. I mean, must generally is a breeding advantage for male elephants. The females prefer bulls in must, So biologically, it might not make that much sense for them to trigger each other, but it might be something like the synchronizing of estrus periods, which happens in a lot of animals, including human beings at times. So that might be a possibility. Brian, there is something on that tree that I'm fairly certain is a foam nest frog. I'm going to be very embarrassed if it isn't, because then that's number 2. And it is, I'll jump out and I'll show you once the ellies have moved a little bit further. Sure, is that a... Yeah. Now, is that a frog or is that lichen? What are we going for? What are we going to guess, ladies and gentlemen? See, now I think I can see movement there. I think I can see breathing. But I'm going to be terribly embarrassed if it is not. I can't do it twice in one day, and it is the perfect color of lichen, and a bit mottled, a bit too mottled. Oh dear. Is this another grievous error? Let's go forward and find out. Please be a frog, please be a frog, please be a frog. Please be a frog, please be a frog. Oh no, it is a frog. That is incredible. That is absolutely incredible. Phew. Well, now that is a relief. I feel as though I have redeemed myself after the leopard log. What do you think, Brian? Is that redemption?
Yeah.
That is a... Oh, sorry. That maybe just unredeemed myself again, if that's a word. Taking my foot off the brake there. That looks like a foam nest frog, and it is exceptionally well hidden. And for those of you, I don't know if any of you are still doubting that that is a frog, and I would not blame you, because that camouflage is absolutely sublime. But you can actually see the pupil and the eyeball. And if I get out to go closer to it, not to disturb it, just so you can watch its eyeball moving, so that you can actually have faith in the fact that there is a frog there. Yay! I have not seen a tree frog in a while now. Oopsie daisy. There we go. And make sure there's no elephant still around. I don't think so, though. Now, unfortunately, this is quite a savage thorn tree. But if you watch where my hand moves, his pupils might move with it. Yeah, there he's moving a bit. See? So it is a frog. I promise it's a frog. Hello. You are incredibly camouflaged. That is absolutely spectacular. Just so similar to the lichen that's wrapped around this tree. And these are the little guys, or this is the little guy responsible for those foam nests that we see. And making a very high-pitched trilling call as an alarm call when there's some kind of threat, whether it be a snake or a bird that might feed upon them. Oh, shit. Oh, sorry, back in the car. Sorry, little one. He was sprinting down the road. Terribly upset with me. My apologies for the slight slip of the tongue. There was a surprise elephant barreling out of the bushes. Sorry, boy. He wasn't terribly impressed with me. I wasn't quite sure where Mom was, but at the high speed at which the elephant was walking down towards my turned back meant a rapid movement back over the car seat. There you go, nice and relaxed, little boy. So, one surprise frog and one surprise elephant. We're doing very well for this afternoon. But a young bull like that, most likely, there is the rest of the herd is probably coming up to follow behind. Shame. If there isn't, he must have got such a fright because he's been left behind by the rest of the herd. And just to go back to our tree frog quickly, to chat a little bit more about that, although I've lost it now. Brian, can you still see our tree frog? Oh, it is still there. That's how well camouflaged it is. Just to go back to the tree frog, it is one of those frogs capable of, or one of the frog that produces those foamy nests around the dam sites and the dam areas. And a lot of the time that is a huge risk for a frog to take. You've seen how we've seen so many dried up foam nest frogs around puddles that have since dried up. And to compensate for that, one female is capable of laying 20,000 eggs. So 20,000 eggs per female foam nest frog. Truly incredible animals. Right, so I'm really good at spotting. Bless you, Brian. Bless you. And again. So I'm very good at spotting tree frogs, less good at spotting elephants running down the road behind me until they're right on top of me. And Dreen is very sharp-eyed and has spotted a lot of creepy crawlies around them, around the frog, and is wondering what they are. And the answer is yes, you are absolutely right. They are ants running around gathering plant material. I can't see exactly, oh, they look like drop-tail ants. See how those tails are pointed downwards rather than upwards? They do look like drop-tail ants. But yes, that is what's dashing up and down about the tree, collecting, in this case, not seeds, but probably other insect life that's around. Wood borer larvae, for example, moths would be another victim of these ants racing about. Luckily, the tree frog is relatively safe from their attentions, and they've got a whole little highway on this knobthorn tree. Wonderful. Just in case you were wondering what's happened to Sam and the Inkahumas, there are a couple of problems with Sam's camera. So what I'm going to do for the moment is I just want to check in to find the last position of those lines. And if worse comes to worse and they can't fix the camera, then we'll go across and we will take his place in that sighting. Sam for Jamie. Oh, beautiful light. Sam, what is the latest update on those Ngala? Copy that, no problem. I'm just making sure I know their position if I need to come and join you in that sighting. Thank you. So just an update on the lines. Brent and James are following up. Isn't this view through the Weeping Wattle absolutely beautiful? Very arty, Brian. Oh. Well, here's a picture we don't often see. I have a plan for us. We're going to go all the way up Cheetah Cut Line so that we are close to Buffelshoek Dam if we need to be. And then if Sam's camera starts to work again, then we can move on to the hyena den and on to other things. Oh, sorry, Finish your arty. Beautiful shot. It's strange, you know, Brian and myself took the rain covers off earlier because we were absolutely 100% convinced that it was not going to rain again. And I'm not sure whether any of the other presenters have touched upon it, but we are actually in the process of rebuilding our carports. So where we park the vehicles under cover each night and in the middle of each day. So at the moment we have been shuffling them very carefully underneath the knobthorn tree that is at camp. However, I feel as though we might need to utilize cover by the end of this sunset safari. All right. Let's start heading fairly at a relatively rapid pace towards Buffelshoek Dam. Brent for Jamie. James, do you have visual of those animals or not? Copy, I'm coming up cheetah cut line from Gowrie Main. I'll check along here. Alright, James is wandering about on foot looking for those lions once again. Make sure that they aren't hiding somewhere underneath a bush. Now, before we discovered the herd of elephants that led to the tree frog that led to another elephant sighting, we were discussing a little bit about Junior and the fact that he is, at the moment, essentially just a nomadic male, moving from place to place to try and avoid any contact with any dominant males. And Amy, you were wondering, does a nomadic male like Junior ever mark his territory, or would he try to cover up his scent? And the answer is he definitely wouldn't be territorial marking. In terms of covering up his scent, though, it's a bit difficult when you're a lion. I've never seen a nomadic male burying his scat, trying to get rid of the evidence of his existence, but that might just be because it is really, really difficult to do. So the males, I mean, lions are by nature incredibly pungent animals, as are the elephants that have clearly wandered through this mud wallow. I can smell the mud. It's got a really distinctive, slightly stagnant water-smelling scent. And you can see where all of the mud has splashed up over the sides. And that, I think, was where our elephants from earlier were actually mud bathing. The splatters, because we did see, I don't know if any of you noticed, I don't think I commented on it, but we did see them covered in mud. And have a look at all of the sort of the scattered mud at the back there that's in the road. It's been spread as they've crossed back. That's all fallen from elephants. Sorry, Annie. I'll get back to your answer. So a lion, to answer Amy's question, can't really hide its scent in any way. So Junior won't attempt to cover up, but he certainly won't draw attention to himself. Oh, look at this. This is lovely. We've got the waterbuck cow on our right, or cows on our right. I thought I saw a waterbuck calf that they were walking to, but I am mistaken. It is not a waterbuck calf, it is an impala. I thought it was the females coming back to feed their calves. There's lots and lots of baby waterbuck in this area. They love this area. And the females will leave their babies hidden. Sure, okay. Sorry, the animal's making for disjointed answers and information this afternoon. Junior will not call in any way. So he won't roar. He will be absolutely silent. Something, sorry, I didn't shut my door. Something that the Nkuhumas occasionally do as well. They also like to fly under the radar at times, particularly when they have a meal, when they have a kill and they really, really don't want to draw the attention of the Birmingham boys to that kill. They keep very quiet, and Junior essentially practices the same idea, practices the same technique, whereby he will go completely silent. Unfortunately for him, hiding is something that he will not be able to do. And that's one of the reasons why I don't think he's going to stay in one place for very long. I think he might have popped back for a visit, so to speak, just to get the lay of the land and to return to somewhere familiar. But I very much doubt that he is going to stick around for too long. Sorry, I have to stop here. What makes you think that perhaps an entire herd of elephant might have walked along this road? That's definitely evidence of a breeding herd, and not just one particular individual elephant. Perfect trail up from where they've come down. That was terrible English. Their tracks are coming down this way is what I mean. You're very important if you ever come to visit South Africa and you come across a scene like this one. Please try not to drive over the dung balls. Now, most of you will be very familiar with the dung beetles that almost immediately make their way across to a pile of dung and inhabit it and start to roll those lovely dung balls that they then move off, or either that or they dig it down beneath the surface of the dung. And you could easily kill up to 100 dung beetles by just driving over one pile of dung. So if you can, whenever you come to visit, if you find yourself driving in the Kruger National Park, please try and avoid driving over the balls of dung, especially in summer. In winter, it's not a problem. The dung beetles are few and far between in winter, but especially in summer. We've seen some really lovely antelope as we've been driving along, and we've very often stopped to list all the different antelope that we could see out here. And Aaron was wondering about one of the most unusual of the antelope species, and that is the reed buck, and was wondering if we could ever see one on drive. And Aaron, watching all the way in New Zealand, yes, you could see a reed buck. It's a little bit unlikely. The habitat is not quite right for them. As the name suggests, they do quite like reeds and river areas that they can hide in. So I personally have never seen one on Djuma, Arathusa or Cheetah Plains, but I know that they are fairly regularly seen on Buffelshoek, which is the property to the north of us. And obviously there's no fence between us. So yes, you could absolutely see a reed buck. You could see a sable, which would be exceptionally exciting for all of us. One was seen on the dam camera not too long ago. The sable being the large black-colored antelope, absolutely incredible with those curved backwards horns. It was the first one has ever been seen on Djuma in 17 years. But with the drought coming, that could be an animal that we might just get a chance to see on our live safaris. You could see a Sharp's Grijsbok, a tiny little antelope about the size of a steenbok and just as cute, but with sort of white patches in its fur. And something I don't think any of us have discussed, because none of us have thought of it as a possibility, a klipspringer. Our klipspringer is an antelope with these very delicate pointed hooves. It walks right in the tip top of its hooves, And much like the mountain goats or the ibexes that you may have seen documentaries on, the way that they climb those cliffs and find the most incredible, have the most incredible balance on almost vertical surfaces, the klipspringer is very similar. It inhabits rocky outcrops and rocky areas known as koppies in the sort of traditional South African lingo, little mountains made of small rocks, and they hop from rock to rock. Now this would be not the right habitat for them at all, but in the same evening that I was checking up on photographs of Brent and myself, actually, we're checking up on photographs of Junior, Tristan showed us a photograph of a klipspringer taken at Simbambili Dam, so right next door to the northwestern part of Djuma. Now how exciting would that be to see a klipspringer just standing on a termite mound? I think there would be a lot of very surprised people, but it is a possibility. The reedbuck might be slightly more likely, Aaron. The rare sable antelope is one of the antelope that approaches baby rearing in the way that waterbuck do, and that steenbok actually do as well, which is for the most vulnerable part of that youngster's life. They will actually hide them away in dense vegetation. But Laura, you were wondering, well then how on earth does that baby have access to water? And the answer is, most of its liquid needs are met by the mother's milk. And speaking of liquid needs, I might need to have a drink in a moment of water. Laurie, they do get most of their hydration from their mother's milk, but just because she leaves them hidden for most of the day, it doesn't mean it's the whole part of the day. Now, if we think back to those waterbuck sightings that we've had at Sydney's Dam, sorry, I'm just listening to the Game Drive comms. Okay. They're still desperately trying to follow up on the Nkuhumas. But yes, if we think back to the sightings that we've had of those baby waterbuck at Sydney's Dam, they do come down for a drink, so the mothers will lead them to a place where they can drink from. And it's amazing to watch how instinctive their reaction, their fear reaction is to approaching a dam with the potential for, the lions that have disappeared, I've got tracks of them walking down this road. And I think it might be the tracks that they are looking for. I've only got one though. Maybe not. This looks like a male moving south, just judging by the size. Okay, it's not the females. Now these tracks cross almost immediately into Torchwood, so that must be one of the Torchwood males. Okay. They just look so beautifully fresh. Let's just double check the area that I've just driven. It's unlikely to be from earlier, but it's just such a busy road, Cheetah Cutline, that the fact that they're on top of all of the vehicle tracks makes me wonder that maybe we didn't just miss out on a male lion walking down the road. But where on earth has he come from, and where has he been hiding this whole time? There's female tracks here as well. Just want to really make sure that these are not the tracks from the lions from today. I know that Brent had tracks here this morning crossing into Torchwood. Okay, there's definitely tracks for females here. Let's just carry on a little bit down this road. I want to keep looking. Stations, how many vehicles have driven along Cheetah Cut Line this afternoon? It would be amazing if they'd managed to get all the way here from where James is. James for Jamie. James, I've got tracks going south on Cheetah Cut Line around Central Road Junction. I don't know if they could have made it all the way here in this time. How wonderful. Absolutely beautiful. A vulture in the sunset. It's actually two vultures in the sunset. Copy that. Go ahead, Brent. It's a negative, further south than that. Oh my goodness. Everybody's trying to talk to me at once. Brent's trying to get hold of James, just to find out where he should fetch him from. Stand by one. James, Brent would like to know where he should pick you up. Brent, James says Buffels Hook East at the confluence of the drainage and the road. He'll be there in 3 minutes. Copy. Brent, James says stand by there. He will come to you. I think he's got your audio. Sorry, everybody. We're just trying to coordinate two people moving through an area trying to find each other. Brent has my comms to final control. James has the game drive communication system. And thus we find ourselves communicating on two different systems. And Sam's camera is currently upside down. Brian is shaking his head. The joys of live safaris, it just means that things don't go according to plan. And Brian, I don't think we're going to be paying a visit to the hyena den this afternoon. We should, however, be able to find these lions unless they've decided to cross onto Torchwood, which would be terribly inconsiderate of them. But they're obviously on the move, probably to go and relocate all those two males at First Rock on Torchwood. Oh, while we've been listening to me organize our current approach to this, not, what would we call it? Not disaster, it's slight mishap. You've been watching a white-backed vulture. Somebody's now trying to call me again. I think it's Sam. That you didn't hear that, did you, Brian? No. Okay. Standing by. Oh my goodness. Okay, sorry, I'm trying to have a conversation. They've got their tracks here. It is the Nkuhumas. They have crossed already into Torchwood. Station, sorry, I've been trying to call these Nkonzo in. They're going south along Cheetah Cutline. It looks as though they've now crossed east into Torchwood. Okay, I think we might be finished. So that was a white-backed vulture that you've been watching while I've been trying to communicate with a couple of different people through a couple of different means. Now, the one funny thing about the way our earpiece works, we've got two different communication systems. We've got the final control talking to us on one side, and we have the game drive comms. Oh goodness, Sam would like to talk to me. Hold on one second, hold that thought. Go ahead, Sam. That is affirmative, Sam. I'm just trying to clarify if they cross into Torchwood or if they are still continuing south. How's it? How are you? Hi, guys. Yeah, I only caught them, I only saw them there, so I don't know if I've driven over some here, but I think they've gone into, maybe going to those Madodas. Yeah, I think that's where they're going. All right. Cheers, guys. Enjoy. Bye. Okay. I think it's sad to say, but the lionesses have moved off into Torchwood, so the property to the east of our boundary, and they are on their way to the males. That's fairly likely at this point, and although I did drive along this road, I only spotted those tracks along there, which means that they have crossed somewhere here. We'll just do a quick trip up Drakensberg in case the tracks, in case the lions, the females decided to do a little bit of a loop and back onto Djuma. Unfortunately, I think as though the lions have crossed. What I was going to say was that our earpiece has two different feeds. We've got the final control and all of your questions, and then we've got the game drive communications. All that's being said amongst the different vehicles out driving on safari. What that means is sometimes, especially if you're trying to talk on two, you can get terribly confused. And I think the person who holds the record for the best confusion is Steph. Because Steph, when I first started working here, he was live, I was the other vehicle, but I was off air. And Steph was answering a question from one of the viewers down the game drive channel. He picked up the game drive channel and said something like, Emma in the US would like to know, but talking across the entire reserve, it does occasionally happen that your wires get a little bit crossed. Thankfully, I haven't done anything like that yet. Okay, let's just check along Drakensberg. James for Jamie. Copy. I'll let Brent know that. What I was going to say is you guys are welcome to check afterwards, but I'm fairly certain the Zingala have crossed into Torchwood, maybe going towards First Rock. was quite complicated. Deborah has a question about, you know, we do these tracking exercises where we have to look so carefully at the different tracks, and try and in places really peer and get the light exactly right to see where the animals have walked. But Deborah was wondering whether or not that sky is absolutely spectacular. Just a brief stop. I know you have been looking at that vulture in the sunset, so I'm not going to stop for too long. It's just such a pretty sky. Very beautiful. Now, to Deborah's question, you were wondering if the animals do recognize other sets of tracks, unlike us with our piddly way of communicating or of observing tracks and following the different animal species and indeed communicating with them. And you were wondering, well, how much of that has to do with recognizing tracks and how much is to do with smell. And most of it, Deborah, is scent oriented. So certain animals, particularly the predators, in certain cases their senses of smell are so strong that you can almost imagine them as seeing scent trails. And I think that's something that's been portrayed in films and in TV series before. You can almost imagine it in colors, the way that the scent trails would be left behind. And I know that I've seen documentaries where they've demonstrated that with owls, for example, and snakes, the way that snakes can see where their prey has moved. And it will work a very similar way with predators. And that will be the first few hours after that animal has moved in an area. But there are many complex layers to the way in which the animals communicate with each other and find each other, because it seems as though it's a very quick experience or very quick response time that a male leopard with an enormous territory, all of a sudden manages to find a female that's coming to estrus. So it's more to do with the sense of smell. I personally don't think that they recognize footprints. I think that it's more a sense of smell. And the reason that I say that is that for the most part, their eyesight, whilst okay, is not fantastic and not really good enough for them to pick up individual shapes in the sand. The art of tracking is something that is perfected by human beings alone in this sense. At least in terms of following step by step by step. The animals don't need to do that. Their senses in terms of hearing and smell are so superior that all they really need to do is follow along with the sense of smell. And of course hearing as well. The Nkuhumas have probably known exactly where those male lions are from first thing this morning when they last called. And it would be interesting to know what their thought pattern was in deciding to make their way through to them. Is it because one of the females is in estrus? Maybe, maybe not. We certainly think that at least one of the ladies is pregnant, if not more. They're just starting to show at this point. Just to go back to our discussion on Junior, and I think unfortunately our light is going to fade before we manage to get across to the hyena den. Annie, you were just wondering, with respect to lions, would a solitary male lion like Junior be likely to remain solitary for the rest of their lives? It's a tricky one because I'm not entirely sure what the percentage is of male lions that manage to find another coalition member. So the lions that have it easiest, the male lions that have it easiest, are those that are born into a litter or born into a pride that has a number of different males of a very similar age. And so when it comes time for them to move off, they move off together and they have that advantage of numbers. With a male like Junior, of course, he didn't have that option, he didn't have that opportunity. Now, the nice thing about the way that lions approach things is that they don't always feel, or they don't always have to form a coalition with a related male. It doesn't have to come from the same pride. They are quite happy to sort of meet up with another young, inexperienced male, almost in a sense make friends, and to form that tight-knit bond. And the reason behind that is by increasing their numbers, they can increase their success rate with females and their success rate in terms of establishing territory, and they will both get a chance, or all three will get a chance to mate with the females within that territory. I'm just watching this Franklin that's been calling from the top of the termite mound. Making such a noise. Let's see if it will carry on. Come on. Now, a lion that's on its own, just while we wait for this bird to start calling, a lion that is on its own, like Junior, has a very, very low survival rate. It's very sad to think of, but that is pretty much the case. So a lion that is on its own will not have the same life expectancy of a male lion that manages to form a coalition. So unless he does, his survival rate is significantly reduced. That doesn't fully answer your question, but if you sort of understand what I'm saying, unless a lion on its own manages to find a friend to sort of form a coalition with, they are unlikely to manage the rest of their life, so to speak. Nope. Our friend's got camera shy all of a sudden. No more calling. Okay. Right. The one time I'm asking a Franklin to call, and it's gone completely quiet. Sorry, I was distracted by the Franklin, but yes, essentially a male lion that is born on its own is moves off on its own, has a far lower survival rate. Junior's best bet in terms of his future, but of course that is very much circumstantial, would be to find another young male of a similar age. And that may well prove to be relatively difficult, but the nice thing is, although it will be sad for us if he moves further and further afield away from our traverse area, but the nice thing will be that he has got loads and loads of space still left to explore. He could decide to go right up into Manyaleti or across to Baluli for all we know, or for all we can tell exactly where he's going to end up. And with that amount of space comes increased opportunities to meet the appropriately aged buddy. I know that Sam was speaking about how this road's got bumpy. Sam was speaking about how winter is his favorite season. Winter isn't my favorite season, but I really do enjoy driving about through the bush at night in winter. And that's just because of all of the increased possibilities of the different creatures that you could get to see. All right, I'm sure many of you are wondering what has happened to poor Samwise. Let's head across and see just how that camera's really doing.
Well, everyone, it's been quite an adventure since we last spoke. Where should I start? Okay, well, firstly, we're sitting at the watering hole with these buffaloes just over there, as you can see. So we found those buffaloes as we got to the watering hole when looking for the lions a little bit earlier. But let me just quickly fill you in with what happened. So the last time I was with you, we were following one of the females into that drainage line. So we just spotted the lions. We got to them. As we got to them, they started to go mobile. They carried on south down into the block. They got into a drainage line, and I'm not familiar with this drainage line, so I'm not sure the directions in which it goes. And it started to head down southeast down one of the drainage lines towards where Torchwood is. And so I then came back onto the fire break, and then went all the way down to Buffelshoek East. And once I was at Buffelshoek East, I then carried on and then tried to get back into the block to see if I could find them. In that chaos of trying to go through the block, we then by accidentally went through a little twig that dislodged our camera, and we broke the plate for the camera. So the plate of the camera was broken, and that was my fault. So I'll take responsibility for that. Well, to be honest, I was excited on finding the lions. We went down into the drainage. I didn't look at a branch. The branch caught the camera, and yeah, so I've learned a lesson now while I'm in the block. It was an unfortunate one, but it's okay. We're now here. We're now here with the buffaloes. And with that, I'm just going to have to say goodbye to you because it's a bit difficult for Dangerous Dave to be standing holding this camera while I'm talking. So yes, the bush comes with all sorts of things. I hope that you enjoy the rest of your evening with Jamie. Much love. Enjoy the rest of this evening. And we'll see you tomorrow for both the sunrise safari and the sunset safari. All the best. See you later.
I found myself with something of a roadblock on my way.
Dodging the camera. There they are. There they are.
There they are.
Hello, everybody.
Everybody waving hello.
Yes. Why have you stopped here?
Why have I stopped here? Well,
Yes.
why have you stopped in the
Well,
middle
you're
of the
blocking our
road?
way. That's more poignant.
Do you want us to move?
No, it's quite all right. Don't worry. Please don't trouble yourself. The seat won't stay. Every time I try and push the clutch in, the seat rolls back. This afternoon's going really well. All right, bye-bye, everybody. Don't worry about the door. I got this. I'll scoot past.
Bye.
Thanks, guys. Bye. Oh, that's much nicer light.
Fine.
Bye-bye. Our industrious tracking team are hard at work, as you can tell. And off along Buffelshoek Cut Line we go. And hopefully, as they race back towards camp, they'll be able to get the camera all fixed and sorted. However, it seems as though the problem is slightly more serious than originally thought. So that spells the end of poor Sam's whoopsie daisy sunset safari. Goodness, there's just elephants popping out of everywhere. Sorry, boy. Isn't that lovely in this light? Sorry, big boy. You came as a surprise in the half-darkness. Lovely young bull. Still looks a little bit small to be completely away from his herd. You'll probably find that he's right at that age where he's just like Junior, being pushed onto the outskirts and is now just about at that stage where he's ready to leave. We're going to let him disappear off into Buffelshoek. Since it is dark, I don't want to... You can shine lights on elephants, but they are diurnal animals, and not all of them appreciate it. And he's just moving off to move a bit further away from us. But yes, just like Junior, young elephants face a very similar crisis, although for them, life's a little bit less scary than it is for a male lion. A male lion has to face the threat of other territorial males, whereas an elephant, no elephants are territorial. So a young male elephant that moves off on his own might be a bit afraid for the first few months. Even the first few years, you'll tend to find that young elephant bulls are a bit skittish. But at the same time, they know that if they meet up with any male elephants, unless they are coming between that elephant and a mating opportunity, they are not going to face the kind of threats that a male lion, for example, would face, or a male leopard. They have it slightly easier, but at the same time, when you think about how important a herd is socially to young elephants, to baby elephants, you can imagine how stressful that particular moment is for a young bull when it's time to move away from the protection of the herd that they've enjoyed for the last 15 or so years. And since we have seen so many elephants this afternoon, or at least quite a few elephants this afternoon, at the very beginning we spoke with that bull at Treehouse Dam about the elephant's ability to find water in dry riverbeds and to dig down and to bring water up to the surface. Jane, you were wondering how it is that they know that there is water there. How are they able to find it? And the answer is that they can smell it. It's done purely through a sense of smell. That, and I'm also quite convinced that they know, just as we have, or we have to be taught, we have learnt, that where you have a river and where it has the sort of the natural bends and the natural corners, water pools at those corners. And there's usually, as that river starts to dry up, those are the last few places that dry up. And the water is usually closer to the surface there. So if you ever find yourself in a survival situation and needing to dig for water, the corners of a river are a really, really good place to start. And I think that elephants learn that throughout their lifetime. But most of it is done purely through a sense of smell, an incredible, incredible sense of smell. We spoke about it with the answer to Deborah's question with animals following, not following tracks, but almost following tracks, scent trails. And we can talk about it with water as well. And just, I always wish, and I do this with every single animal that I see, I always wish that I could transport myself into the body, just for the day, into the body of an animal, into the mind of an animal, and experience the world through their senses. Imagine suddenly finding yourself in an elephant's body and dealing with the coordination of those giant flapping ears, and this trunk, this nose that extends right forward and stretches back and has all that mobility, and then dealing with the barrage of the senses, hearing sounds that would overwhelm us if we were to hear them, because our brain is just not equipped for tuning out the less important ones. Smelling smells, knowing that a lion walked down this pathway a day ago. I'm trying to think, if I had to choose which animal I would, if I could pick one of the animals out here to spend a day in the life of, which one I would choose. And I've never really thought about it before from that perspective. If I had to choose just one, I think it would be an elephant, I think. Although it would be amazing to be a leopard for a day and experience that agility and climb a couple of trees and jump down from a couple of trees, or even just an impala. and experience that rush of power, that speed and the leaps that they can perform. Or a bird with their binocular vision, perhaps maybe not a batelier. I have a feeling that that short-tailed rocking motion flight would probably result in a crash from my side, but maybe one of the big raptor species with binocular vision. Ooh, difficult. Any ideas what you would pick, Brian?
I'd go for a bird.
You'd go for a bird. Brian would go for a bird. Okay, so we've got that. I'd actually love to hear what some of you would decide to go, what you would be for a day and why out in the African bush. Or should we limit it that way, or should we say which animal would you be, maybe throughout the world, just for a day? You've only got a day. You keep your own mind in this bizarre scenario that I'm now in the process of painting. So you can still, you'll be able to absorb and to remember it once you are back to your usual self, but you get to experience their senses, their instincts, their reflexes, their strength, their speed. What would you choose? And send those through to #SafariLIVE on Twitter or to questions@wildearth.tv. And Deborah has said she would like to be an eagle soaring through and over the beautiful landscape, enjoying utilizing the thermals, keeping her aloft and looking across the stunning views. Now that's a really interesting one that I hadn't considered. Our beard was thinking about giraffe and the possibility of maybe, imagine how weird that would feel. To be that tall with legs that long. I have to tell you, our beard, I wouldn't choose a giraffe, and I'll tell you why I wouldn't choose a giraffe. Because by nature, I'm an exceptionally clumsy person. And coordinating two legs moving on my left side and then my right side of that length, I can almost guarantee I would fall down. Although I suppose maybe you have that coordination already if you've got the instincts of the animal, I don't know. I just have a feeling I'd somehow find a way to fall over. Joe expanding it a little bit further afield, since this is definitely not an animal that we would be seeing here. If we were, it would be rather lost. But Joe was suggesting a dolphin. She would like to be a dolphin. And I can totally agree with that, or I can at least see why you would want to be a dolphin. That speed of movement through water and power that you would experience. And that's just such a totally different environment. And some of you might be scuba divers, so you might be a bit more au fait with the ocean. But I certainly feel, and I'm a South African, so I've grown up swimming from a very, very young age. But I certainly feel when I'm swimming in an open ocean, I do feel very out of my comfort zone. I still enjoy it, but it's outside of my comfort zone. So to be a dolphin would be to experience an entirely different side of the planet that you might not ever otherwise be able to experience. Diving to the depths of the ocean, being able to hold your breath. James Richard is thinking along the lines of what I am currently looking for to show you. James Richard has said maybe one of the nocturnal species to experience the nightlife in the way that they do. And life is so incredibly different out here. It's one of the reasons why there are so many exciting possibilities for SafariLIVE in the future, and for WildEarth, of course, to have that capacity to go out and to film in the middle of the night with thermal imagery and high ISO cameras and whatever else the brainchildren of, or the brains behind WildEarth happen to come up with, might just allow us a little bit more into the nighttime world of the bush. Of course, we get these moments now where we're driving about. I'm waving this light about, looking for any reflection of eyes for the nocturnal creatures that James Richard has suggested. But in the next few months, stay tuned, because you never know when things might start to change and we might get to explore a different aspect of the life out here. And speaking about driving about at odd times, Ginny, you're wondering why there are no safaris out here in the middle of the day. And Ginny, there's a couple of reasons for that. One is, even in midwinter, the temperatures can get very, very warm, but in summer it would be, for us as the guides and as the cameramen, the people out in the field, it would be absolutely, sure, it would be impossible for us. First of all, even in our late afternoon sunset safaris in the middle of summer, our camera equipment sometimes overheats and shuts down. Brian, you can imagine what it would be like to work in the middle of the day.
I know what it's like to work.
You do know? Actually, that's a very good point. Brian did used to wonder about the Kalahari. That's what you're talking about, yeah. Brian, when he was working for WildEarth in the Kalahari, he used to wander about in the middle of the day filming meerkat. Absolutely incredible. I take my hat off to him, because having experienced our midday temperatures, it can be phenomenally energy sapping. And yes, actually, my old job, I used to work a little bit longer into the middle of the day, and it was exhausting. But most importantly, besides for the equipment safety and for personnel safety, most importantly, the animals are generally, first of all, the elephants are more grumpy. The animals are very, very stationary, usually hiding away in the shade. The best times to be out in safari are first thing in the morning, just as the sun is rising or just before first light, and at this time of the day as temperatures start to cool. Unfortunately, the Nkumas played a trick on us and managed to disappear across our boundary far earlier than I expected them to be up and walking. But yes, those are sort of the main reasons why we don't operate in the middle of the day. And it's very much a safari tradition. You go out on game drive first thing in the morning as a guest. You can go for a bit of a walk at around 11 o'clock if you wish to, but generally that middle of the day is, those 2 or 3 hours in the middle of the day are for catching up on office work. Somewhere with a nice fan would be ideal. And also bearing in mind, of course, that the days would then be exceptionally long, with early morning first light wake up, not even wake up, being out at first light, and closing the work after the sun has gone down would definitely change things. But in the middle of the night, on the other hand, things could well be changing in the future. Back to the discussion we were having earlier, lots of you suggesting that you would be elephants. If you had to pick one animal to be, that is the one that you would go with. I can understand that. I think it would be absolutely fascinating, first of all, just to experience that bulk in that way, that tremendous amount of weight. And then also from there, the coordination of the trunk, the sense of smell, even just experiencing their poor eyesight would be a lesson in itself from that perspective. And maybe we would understand better some of the behaviors that we see exhibited that we can't explain all the time. And I wonder if, I think in my scenario, it would also allow us to hear those rumbles that they make. Those low frequency rumbles, we only catch the tail end. Whoopsie daisy. All right, little scrub hare. Shame. Off he goes. That was a scrub hare. It's the only type of the shives in Memphis. Unfortunately, our little scrub hare has managed to escape us, but you were asking to see a scrub hare. I'll keep my eye out for a slightly better sighting so that we can have a look. The only member of the rabbits and the hare family that we see here, we don't get any of the southern African rabbit species like the Jamison's rock rabbit, the riverine rabbit. None of them occur in this area. Oh. Our beard, when I mentioned that the middle of the day was for office work and for admin work, our beard has just, apparently I've just burst a tremendous bubble about their impressions about the bush, the fact that we do admin and office work. Unfortunately, there's no escaping emails out here, or indeed various different admin requirements. For example, the cameraman at the end of the day, if they've had a spectacular sighting or even just a sighting that needs noting, they have to go and they have to archive, and we've got tremendous archives of all of the labeled, dated sightings that we've had with the different animals. That's just one of the many tasks that have to be fulfilled. I'm very good, however, our beard, at avoiding most admin. It is one of my special talents. I have something of an aversion to such things. I do have to occasionally conquer it. I do my best to overcome this weakness in my character, but emails and myself don't really get on terribly well. Technology and I, actually, to be completely honest, don't get on terribly well. But our beard, never fear. No matter... Our beard's got his fingers in his ears. He's not listening, not interested in hearing what I had to say. Our beard, if you could remove your fingers from your ears just for the next sentence. Let me put it this way. I promise you that there is no better setting on earth in which to do one's admin work than looking out of the window, perhaps at an elephant browsing on the leaves outside, or running outside in mid-email to chase the monkeys away from whatever they happen to be up to next, or whatever else you happen to be experiencing. Plus, there's no sirens and no traffic. I hope that makes you feel slightly better about, or slightly restores your perception of life in the bush. Just as we went through that dip back there, I started to feel the first nip of the evening. Something that it's one of those autumn things where the temperatures skyrocket in the afternoon and then plummet right down. I say plummet, they go down to, at the moment, around the high 50s, mid 60s. That's where our temperatures are sitting right now. We do have a question about our actual winter as opposed to autumn temperatures. And Erin and Angela, you were both wondering about, oh, there we go, here's a scrub hair, sorry, stand by on that question. As we come to a gentle and subtle halt. There you go, this is for our viewer in Memphis. Scrub hair. They are terribly sweet, with those large ears and velvety fur. Let's try for one last view. See how even with the scrub hair, that is now behind the bush, but even with the scrub hair, I'm not sure if you've noticed how its tail is highlighted in black, just like we have with a lot of the antelope species. The back of lion's ears, total black rather than white. And black is a color that stands out particularly in the bush. Come on, boy, I need you to turn your back on me so I can show the viewers what I'm talking about. There you go. You can see it a little bit there. Fluffy whitish underside, but with dark on top. And you can interpret that in whichever way you wish. Might be a way for youngsters to follow the scrub hare about. So he's nibbling on some grass there. Of course, baby hares, unlike baby rabbits, it's one of the things that sets the two apart. Baby hares are born precocial. In other words, they are born like little miniature adults ready to run about and play and hop and skip and jump. Most importantly, escape predators. So following mom is probably a very good idea. That shadow looks like a shadow puppet made from hands, just by the way, with the scrub hair. Baby rabbits, on the other hand, are altricial when they're born. In other words, born blind, with no fur, in burrows, where they have time to develop. Ooh, big stretch. Oh, having a good nibble between the toes. Very, very warm welcome to Drew in Johannesburg, who is a long-term viewer. But this is actually the first time that Drew has ever sent through a question. Well, it's wonderful to have you, Drew. Glad to hear from you. You were wondering about red spotlights and what my opinion is on tinting the light slightly red. And just to explain that for any other viewers who aren't as familiar with spotlighting practice, we do not spotlight daytime animals, and the reason that we do not do that is because they are not able to reflect the light back in the same way nocturnal creatures like the scrub hare are able to. In other words, when you do shine a spotlight on them for a protracted period of time, a white spotlight, you will run the risk of potentially not damaging their eyesight permanently, but you will slowly detract from their ability to see in the night for the next half an hour or up to an hour. So what Drew is asking about is the practice of tinting a spotlight so that only the red layers can go through. So it's a red light rather than the bright white light that I'm using at the moment. Drew, my honest opinion, I have used one before. It still made me highly uncomfortable to spotlight an animal, a daytime animal with it, even though I know that it doesn't have an impact on that animal's vision nearly as much as a white spotlight does. I believe in not doing anything. It's not necessary to view a daytime animal at night. We get plenty of opportunity to do so during the day. So if, for example, you wanted to use it at night during a hunt, you're still going to run the risk of interfering with that hunt in some way, whether it is to give away the predator's position or whether it is just to make that prey species a little bit more distracted. And my personal opinion is that it isn't as necessary, or it isn't that necessary out here. You can accomplish the same amount with the white spotlight, plus it allows you to see slightly further, so you've got a greater chance of spotting an animal further in the bush. An animal like a leopard or a white-tailed mongoose or whatever nocturnal creature you happen to be looking for. Now this is a slightly better penetrative ability. Now that's sort of where my opinion forms in terms of red-tinted spotlights, or the other approach is to use green as well. But I don't feel that it makes a tremendous difference, and I feel like if you are not comfortable using a spotlight in a situation, then it shouldn't matter if it's got a red tint or a green tint. Yes, it doesn't interfere with their vision as much, or nearly as much, but you still shouldn't be using it, if you understand what I mean. Very important to have good spotlighting ethics. Back to Erin and Angela, just because I know I was in the middle of answering your question before I stopped for that scrub hair. You were wondering about the minimum temperatures, or the temperatures in winter, and the length of the days. So the answer to the temperatures is during the night it will go down to around around 0, maybe between 0 and 5 degrees centigrade, so 32 up to about 40 degrees in Fahrenheit. And then during the day it will go right up to mid-20s, low to mid-20s, so the mid-70s in Fahrenheit. Those are my rough Fahrenheit conversions. It still gets warm enough to walk around in a t-shirt, sometimes even shorts, in the middle of winter. Not always. Sometimes the days are very, very cold, and they don't go over, for us, very, very cold. They don't even go over 10 degrees. But the bit that catches you is driving about in an open vehicle like we're doing now, with the wind chill factor. We feel as though we feel it quite badly, but the cameramen sitting up above us and further back bear the brunt of it. So we all dress up like miniature Eskimos with our multiple layers when we go out in midwinter. In terms of daylight hours, the sun rises at around 6:30 and sets at around 5:30, which equates to, or about 5:15 probably on the shortest day. What does that equate to? That equates to 10 and a half. Let's go with 10 and a half odd hours of daylight, unless I've got my maths completely confused. 6, yeah, that sounds about right. 10 and a half hours odd, maybe 10 on the shortest day of the year would be the amount of daylight we have. So at our particular latitude, we don't go through the same extremes of day length when it comes to summer and winter as some of the areas in Europe, for example, or for Canada, the northern United States, with those long, long summer days and those short, short winter days. That's a really, really nice idea. To go back to the conversation we were having about what animals we would be, Shannon has actually suggested being the animal that you are scared of for the day. Just for the day, so that in future, maybe you won't be scared of that animal again. I like that. I think that's a really nice idea. That being said, spending a day as a centipede for me, centipedes of course being my secret, deepest, darkest, not fear, just slight discomfort when it comes to centipedes. Spending a day as a centipede, I suppose I could do that. I could definitely do that. And for those of you arachnophobes out there, spending a day as a spider trying to figure out how to coordinate all 8 legs might be incredibly entertaining. You could spend time spinning a web, or for those of you that are absolutely terrified of snakes, you could be a snake for the day. and spend time slithering about. Personally, I still haven't made my mind up yet. I'm still tossing up. I've also thought about a wild dog now, because I think having that kind of speed and stamina might be great fun. Race through the bush at high speed. Quite a few of you have also suggested a wild dog would be your preference as well. Oh, it's another scrub here. Every now and again, the glint of the light catches one's eye. I'm not going to stop for, oh, squeaky, for too long. We're here on quarantine clearings for the last few moments of our sunset safari. And I'm checking really carefully because I would say the last 5 or so days, there have been hyenas every time I've driven from the main camp back to where I live. I've been trying to work out who they are, but unfortunately I haven't managed just yet. What do you suppose that is, Brian? Is it just a funny...
Wasp's nest.
Is it a wasp's nest? Oh, that's awesome. It's a paper wasp nest, hiding in the tree. It's amazing how something like that will catch your eye as you drive past. Just a small little shape that looks slightly, just slightly wrong for what you're looking for. But speaking of hyenas, as we do a perusal of quarantine, Cara, you were wondering if there are any hyena clans in the neighboring areas. The one that we know of around sort of from the eastern edge of Arathusa to the western into Elephant Plains is a very, very large clan. I don't know if that clan has a specific name. I just know it is the Elephant Plains clan, and I think that's because they usually den around Elephant Plains. We suspect that our clan's territory runs very far around to even towards Cheetah Plains, but definitely into Torchwood and into Buffelshoek. But beyond that, we actually don't really know of the clan dynamics any further beyond our own clan. But yes, there will most definitely be neighboring clans. It's just a question of, and I would love to know exactly how big the territories of the different hyena clans are out in this area, in this specific environment. Because of course an animal's territory size very much depend on the type of ecosystem and the type of habitat that we get to. Now, as we come to the end of our sunset safari, I didn't quite manage to get to the hyena den. Never fear, for those of you wishing me a happy leave, thank you very much. I will probably be driving on tomorrow's sunrise safari. That will very much depend upon whether or not the camera is fixed. But in case I am not, I'm going to say farewell to you all for a little while. Of course, as you know, we go on regular break periods just because we work all week. We work 7 days a week for 6 weeks. But I will be back. I would tell you what my plans are, but I haven't actually fully formulated them yet. I'll let you know once I'm back what I decided to do. But thank you all for your very kind well wishes. Hopefully for the sunrise safari tomorrow, the Nkuhumas might decide to come back. Or, who knows, you never know where Junior might be hiding. Although I would strongly advise him, if I could speak to him, not to come wandering across in this direction, not with the Birmingham boys about. Or, you never know, Karuna might decide to come back on. You'll just have to, onto Djuma, you will just have to tune in to tomorrow's sunrise safari to find out. And on that subject, a very big thank you to Brian for all of his fantastic camera work, and as always, the participation and the much beloved Thumb. Thank you, Thumb. As well as to Sam and to Dave, unfortunately cut short, and to Kirsty and Lou in final control. Most importantly, thank you to you all. Have a wonderful day, and we will see you tomorrow. Cheers, everybody.